what it says.
Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Public Works Committee of the City of Rapid City for Tuesday, February 13th, 2018, the day before Valentine's Day. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum.
Drew.
Here.
Solomon. Modrick. Roberts. Nordstrom. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now it's time for the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Nordstrom, second by Modrick. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now it's time for the general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the aldermen present. And I have no speaker request forms. So general public comment is now closed, and we'll go on to Jason Solomon, who asked for a point of privilege during the public comment section.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to reserve my comment for now.
Okay.
So I withdraw. Thank you.
All right. We won't argue with that. Now we're on to the consent calendar, which is items 1 through 26. So public comment is now open on items 1 through 26. Seeing no respondees, we'll go and close public comment. Now it's time for the council members present to remove any items from the consent agenda. And do we hear from, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I pull item number 7, please?
Yes. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 13, please.
Right, and I am going to remove items 9 and 10. So, okay, I need a motion to adopt the balance with the exception of 7, 9, 10, and 13.
So moved.
Moved by Modrick, second by Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries. So we're on to item 7, an agreement between the City of Rapid City and Gerhard Elizabeth Heck for the exchange of property, and we go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to our Public Works Director, please?
Please do.
Dale, reviewing this, can you explain a little bit about what this agreement is and how it might impact the city?
Yes. Yes, I will. The City of Rapid City owns property out along Radar Hill Road and East Highway 44. There's an adjoining property owner, the Hex. Over time, there has been encroachments by both parties onto one another's properties. So in an effort to clean things up, we're going to be doing a swap. It's an acre for acre swap of adjoining properties just to clean up the lines of ownership and to get everything the way it needs to be out there. So I think I described this at the last meeting. This is a good deal for the city as well as the adjoining properties, the Hex.
So pretty apples to apples swap by both parties.
Yes.
Winning, no one's losing. Similar
Correct.
value, everything's...
The land, in my opinion, is of equal value. Standing there, you can't distinguish between whose property is where. That was part of the problem with the encroachments. The boundary lines were not very clear, so.
Okay, very well, thank you. I yield.
Need a motion? Motion by Nordstrom and second by Modrick. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the motion is carried. Move on now to item number 9, which I pulled. So, authorize mayor and finance officer to sign agreement number 1 to the professional services agreement between the City of Rapid City and FMG Engineering for the solid waste landfill cell 18 design to include design and installation of 4 additional groundwater monitoring wells, project number 16-2371 in the amount of $9,969.51. And I would go to Dale to ask a question. Just both of these items, 9 and 10, kind of go together, but go ahead and explain what 9 does for us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 9, as part of the review of our landfill cell 18 expansion by the regulatory agency, which in this instance happens to be the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources, One of their comments was we need to install 4 more wells, monitoring wells. Our consultant obviously had designed a number of wells for the monitoring purpose, but this was a comment that we received back from the regulatory agency. So in order to be in compliance with what they want to see, we are adding this as an additional project expense. And then item number 10, certainly we've got, I believe, the
Dale, I'm going to just read that in for anybody that might be listening
Sure.
or watching.
Very good.
Item 10 is to authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a professional services agreement between the City of Rapid City and FMG Engineering for Phase 2 construction management of Cell 18, project number 16-2371, in the amount of $260,550.
Yes, Madam Chair. The recently advertised project, it's going to be somewhere between $6 and $7 million for the expansion out there. We are hiring FMG, who did the design work on the project, to also be our construction engineering team. So this contract is for them to do all the construction engineering. So when the project's being built, they'll be doing the testing, the observation, making sure that the contractor builds it in compliance with not only the plans that we're bidding off of, but back to our state regulatory agency standards.
Now, do you think these will be the last design fees that we see, or do you anticipate more?
No, I guess one point I'd like to urge is you have design and construction, and those are 2 different things. Certainly the city, we do have inspectors on staff to do construction type monitoring. However, the workload is such that we don't have enough inspectors to do that. That's why we hire consultants. And on a highly specialized project such as this, it's very important to hire the design engineer that's the most familiar with the project. They've been in it since day one. They know the pitfalls that may be out there. So this is a very common practice that we use on all of our large infrastructure projects.
Okay, well, that takes care of me. So let's go back to number 9. Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Number 10, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Modrick, second by Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. That moves us on to item 13, approved lease agreement between the City of Rapid City and Black Hills Lacrosse for field space at the Star of the West Sports Complex, and authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the lease agreement. We go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, if I may make the motion to approve the lease agreement. Second.
Motion by Nordstrom and second by by Solomon. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for putting all these agreements together. I think there's something like 13, 14 different agreements that we did. And what I really appreciate is the highlighting of what the changes are. So it was really pronounced in the lease agreement, and then for me, what I was interested in is the legal description on it. And then third, for me, what I really appreciated was the pictures, the overall, or the aerials that you included on that. So it demonstrates to the public where these are at, where these facilities are, and I just want to give a lot of kudos to everyone that was involved with that. So, Mr. Biegler, thank you very much for all the hard work, and to the staff that put all this together for us. Thank you. I yield.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to our Parks and Recreation Director, Jeff Biegler?
Well, he's on his way to the podium. It seems like your
What a
timing is perfect.
coincidence. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
I echo Richie's statements here. One thing I would ask you, some are 1 year and some are 3 year. Can you describe the differences and why that is?
I certainly can, yes. A number of our locations received grant funding in the past from the federal grant program called the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And it's a federal grant that's administered through the state and passed along to the municipalities that apply for funding. So for those areas that are encumbered with Land Water Conservation Fund restrictions, one of those restrictions is that the facility must have reasonable public access. And so this is something that we have really dug into in the last year and a half or so. And what we are proposing to the state and to the National Park Service, which originates the fund, that we have at least one of these fields available for public use during the priority season, and after the priority season, more of these fields are available for public use. So those fields they're not exclusive lease agreements. They're based on priority use during the length of the season that each of these groups use the fields. So now to get back to your original one, the reason for the 1 year versus 3 years, those areas that are not encumbered with these restrictions are a 3-year lease. Those that are a 1-year lease, we are waiting to hear from the National Park Service whether or not the steps we're taking satisfies that element of reasonable public access. So we haven't gotten that information yet, so we are hoping that within this year we will get that confirmation of either yes, what you're doing is fine, in which case those lease agreements the next time will be 3-year lease agreements. If they say no, that's not enough, then we will go back to the drawing board and see what we can do to satisfy that restriction.
So assuming it's a yes, a year from now, will we go back and revisit the lease agreements, and will we try for 2 or 3 years at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
2 or 3 years, yes. If we do a 2-year, then they would all come
Line up
due
again.
at the same time in 3 years.
That is nice, I think, for
Yes.
council to have that.
I think so too.
Just to compare all these agreements with one another, make sure everybody's
Right.
getting something fair and equitable. So, thank you for the explanation.
Okay.
I yield.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great questions. By the way, Mr. Biegler, on the grants that we're getting from the different organizations, is there any opportunity using some of that grant funding that comes in for administrative costs or services, or how does that?
Well, these are grants that the city has been getting since the 1960s, and so
Yes.
they have been grants for parking lot improvements at these facilities, or playground equipment, or installing the fields themselves. So they cover a variety of different uses. I don't know what the restrictions they are in terms of the use. We have not received one of these for a number of years, at least since I've been here. So I couldn't tell you how much of that would be available for administrative costs.
Very good. No, that's not the major issue. So I just really appreciate this opportunity that we have available. And then if you find out that information in passing, that'll be fine.
I will.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam
You have
Chair.
a minute and 3 seconds.
Yep,
No,
thank you.
I'm kidding.
Jeff, with all these activities, one question I was wondering is, are any of these particularly gaining in popularity? Are there any trends that we need to see in terms of field usage as we plan for the future?
Well, I think the one that stands out to me is the lacrosse. The Black Hills Lacrosse Association used to play at the one field there at Denver Street, which was pretty small in comparison to what they're using now at the Star of the West fields. When the soccer organization moved out to the new Dakota Fields on Elkvale, they relinquished the lease of the other soccer fields that they were using in town. So we were able to repurpose the soccer fields over at the Star of the West field to lacrosse fields. And they were so excited because that is a sport that's growing in popularity, and they were able to bolster their numbers by having more room to hold games and practices.
That's interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. I yield.
And Jeff, if you could indulge me, I have just a question here. Because I'm your liaison, I get to also go to the urban forestry and urban wildlife meetings, and I say get to because it's been a great education for me. Usually we only hear from urban forestry after a big storm or something. But, you know, as you're looking at all these fields and all this park use, it came to my attention that you planted hundreds of trees over the in 2017, and I think the number that sticks with me is 800. And what you're trying to do is really create shade for a lot of these fields. I mean, I probably won't sit under those trees, but, you know, someone will someday, and maybe you could just expand on that a little bit, you know, with shade awareness.
Sure. We have tried to plant trees in sort of the spectator areas a number of these facilities and will continue to do so. And like you said, I mean, they provide minimal shade today, but in 10 or 12 years or 15 or 25 years, they'll be significant for shading the public. We've also, as you are well aware, we have had the good fortune of receiving grants from the dermatology doctors for shade structures at both the Parkview tennis court and coming this summer will be a shade structure at the Sioux Park tennis courts.
Just to clarify, because I know that's the Skin Institute that has
Right.
provided that money.
Thank you.
so-
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you. That's all I really wanted to say, is that you do so much to preserve our parks in such important ways that the public really doesn't get to hear about unless there's a major event. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor? Excuse me? Those opposed? And the motion carries. That moves us to the end of the consent calendar. Nordstrom moves to adjourn. Second. Solomon seconds that. Okay. All in favor of adjournment? Aye. We stand adjourned.